This is the final word. T20 World Cup Daily with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins, brought to you by CBUS Super, making hard work pay off. It's day 15.1 because there are so many games today. We're having to do a daily show in two parts. India will play South Africa later on today, so check in the feed if you want that episode. And this episode, well, a couple of games already took place. The Dutch took on Pakistan and Bangladesh played Zimbabwe in another thriller. Adam, you're going to tell us about that game, and you're going to do so in the space of 30 seconds or less.
All right, let's try. Bangladesh win the toss and get the opportunity to bat first. And look, making 150, it felt as though it was going to be a sizable score. They only got there due to the fact that Shanto hit 71 from 50-something balls. They didn't race to the finish line, but they did enough. And then Zimbabwe, in response at one stage, was 69 for 5. Their top order was decimated by the Bangladeshi seamer Tashkent Ahmed, and then a brilliant partnership between Sean Williams and Ryan Bell took place that got them to within striking distance of the finish line. Some controversial moments at the very end of the game, but it didn't change the result. Bangladesh win by 3 wickets, make that 3 runs in a game that we'll remember for a long time. There's a lot to dig into here.
Yeah, I mean, Zimbabwe not quite out, but effectively out. They would have to beat India, which is pretty unlikely at the moment. What a finish. I mean, again, we had a game where you needed 16 runs off the last over. And again, Zimbabwe very, very nearly did it. And again, there was umpiring based on very niche interpretations of parts of the laws.
What is it about World Cups that there's something about World Cups and T20 World Cups especially that the most obscure bits of the law book get dragged up. I mean, you occasionally see, and the moment you're referring to is when on what was meant to be the final ball of the chase, when
they needed 5 to win.
Yeah, 4 for a super over and 5 to win. The Murizabami was stumped ostensibly, but we found out later that Nur Hassan took the ball in front of the stumps, therefore rendering the dismissal void, being made a no ball, and then a free hit and a run added to the tally. So suddenly free hit with 4 to win, not 5 to win. Of course, he missed it, and so it is, and they lose by that margin of 3 runs. But it was not too dissimilar to the end of the T20 Blast final earlier this year, where Hampshire thought they'd taken the last wicket on the last ball. Forgetting his name now, the Australian fast bowler, Nathan Ellis. And then they, retrospectively, about 90 seconds later, after all the fireworks had gone off, said, actually, his foot's not behind the line. And that was a free hit situation too. But much as it was in that game, the fielding side did get the job done. They held their nerve. And Mossadegh was the man with the ball in his hand who did a fine job in that final over after getting hit for a massive 6 into the Zimbabwean corner of the ground as well. And you're thinking, you're going to do this again. They don't give up.
And you're stiff as a bowler if you've... That's not your fault that the keeper's taken the ball in front of the gloves, but it goes down as a no ball against you and a free hit and all the rest of it. It's not like he bowled the head high full toss a la Mohammad Nawaz. But I mean, that last over, it was like the India-Pakistan game. It did the twisting, it did the turning. They start off needing 16. You say, well, Zimbabwe probably won't get 16 because Sean Williams has just been run out. So he's made his 60-odd, but he's run out in the previous over. Yeah. Had to try to take a single. I mean, brilliant piece of fielding from Shakib Al Hassan off his own bowling. Spinning the wrong way, basically unsighted, bounced the ball in, left arm, which is his natural throwing arm, but bounced it into the stumps while barely having a look at them. Runs out the most important player for Zimbabwe in that innings. That's the match-winning moment, effectively. But they need 16, and then
they needed 40 off 3 as well. So again, the similarities to the India-Pakistan game were there, except instead of having Virat Kohli, you've got Richard Agarava, coming in down the order. Who is playing the Kohli role.
Yeah, and Brad Evans gets out, so he has a big swing and gets caught in the deep, and so they need heaps off the last 4 deliveries, and then Agarava there's 4 that are leg byes, and then he whacks a big 6 over deep backwards square leg, and so then it comes down to that point, as you say, okay, so they need 5 off the last 2, but then there's a fresh air shot, swing and a miss, and then he just gallops out, and I feel bad for fast bowlers when they have to try to bat. It's like a giraffe coming down to drink. It's all arms and legs. Leaps out of the crease, just hoping to connect with something and send it into the stands because they need 6 to win. Rather than going to the super over, he's going for the win, or he's just going for the rush of blood, I suppose. And then the no ball, and then it's like, okay, well, you could actually do this. You only need 4, and it's a free hit. You can't be dismissed.
Not that the dismissal's a factor really on the last ball, but nevertheless, psychologically, the fact that it is a free hit, I think it just changes the framework.
I guess maybe you think even if you hit it just really high up in the air, maybe you'll have time to run 3 and get the tie. I don't know. So you don't necessarily have to worry about placement so much. You just have to try to hit it as hard as you can. a la Fight Club. So, the twists and turns in those last 6 balls alone made it a game worth watching. But the way that Zimbabwe came back from being...
this is it. They were 69 for 5. That partnership with Burl and Williams, they came together. I think they needed 82 runs in 8 overs. So it was kind of similar to the Curtis Camp for George Dockrell partnership against Scotland a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Or at least it felt that way, where they were... I didn't see the win viz, but it would have been single digits for Zimbabwe at that juncture. And that pair, I mean, we've heard a lot about the Zimbabwean side refusing to give up, and we saw that against Pakistan a couple of nights ago over in Perth, and this was the best demonstration of it, that Williams and Burl, 2 senior players, especially in Williams' case, might be his last World Cup, who knows, he just refused to lie down, and they were able to transfer some pressure back onto the Bangladeshi bowlers, a couple of expensive overs, and suddenly they were within striking distance again. So, and it did kind of come from nowhere, because the first 12 overs of the chase, and indeed the way they fielded, it felt like Zimbabwe just weren't on today. Like maybe it was like you sometimes see this in football, don't you? Where a side will be so gallant and so almost riding a wave of emotion, and then when they eventually get beaten, they get beaten quite badly. I thought that's the way it was going to trend for Zimbabwe today, but again, you can't underestimate this side. They won't make it to the semi-finals now, barring some extraordinary turn of events. I can't see it happening, but that's okay, because as we said throughout the last fortnight, this is about Zimbabwe being back on the big stage, about competing, seriously competing, winning serious games of cricket, and laying a foundation for the future. They were never going to, at their first World Cup for 6 years, an upset win here or there. I think Bharat put it nicely that nature is healing with Zimbabwe taking scalps at World Cups. And
Mossadegh, who you've always loved the work of, with the ball being asked to bowl the last over.
I did like that.
I mean, that's heavy pressure, and
especially
and
having...
did it. I mean, he gets Ngarava out. Ngarava hits for 6 and then gets out, gets stumped next ball, and then he fires in the flat one that should have been another stumping and is overturned, and then he fires it in again and manages to evade the bat. I mean, he beats the bat 3 times in a row, and yes, he's bowling to tail enders, but he's bowling to them with the game on the line. Yeah,
around the wicket as well, so trying to cut off that angle and did it. You have less margin for error when you're bowling around the wicket, because if you're too straight, it's easier to pop you over deep mid-wicket, but he held his nerve, and that was exceptional. Mustafiza, who we've always enjoyed following on the final word. I think he finished with figures of I've got it written down here somewhere, 2 for 15 from 4 overs, and Taskin Arman up the top, 3 for 19 from 4, including a wicket maiden. I think it was 3 for 9 off 3, and he went for 10 in his last over towards the death. But it was the 2 quicks that set it up for Bangladesh.
And then Shanto, who's been super impressive through this tournament repeatedly, and Afif Hussain, who's done this down the order cameo thing that has actually swung 2 games in their favour.
It's working for them.
He comes in, he makes 20 or 30 quickly, and he's got that licence to hit. But they were in strife again when Afif Hussain's out there. If he holds out, then things could go very badly very quickly.
Well, you're right, because the acceleration was kind of there for Bangladesh. They were going at 8s between overs 10 and 15, but they needed to. When Shanto gets out, it's no sure thing they'll get 150. They went at 10s in the back 5, which is, I suppose, the bare minimum in a World Cup, T20 and all the rest of it. But Bangladesh have blown hot and cold in this tournament so far. So, if I suppose it stands to reason that if they're chasing 140, Zimbabwe probably win that game. So, you're spot on. Afif's contribution proved vital. And then to go straight out there with the ball, Taskin in the first over getting a wicket, Matavere wasn't it straight away, and then getting the second breakthrough in his second over. I think that was the captain Irvine, and then setting it up beautifully when Raza walks in. We know there's been so much made of Raza and the performances he's strung together in this tournament and through the course of 2022, especially in 50 over cricket for his country. So much hinges on whether, can he do it again? He's out second ball, and I suppose picks the wrong ball to go out, big top edge, and the rest is history. But
that's where someone like Williams goes, it's good, I've got this, I've got the experience, I can marshal this chase.
Yeah, that's right, it was Mustafiza. No, it wasn't. Who got? It was Mustafiza who picked up Raza, and he also got Milton Shumba. That was the catch from Shakib Al Hassan on the edge of the circle. And there was a nice bit of contrast. Mid-off, I think it was. There was this contrast between the exceptional Bangladesh fielding, not words that have always come out of my mouth, it must be said. We saw a really important catch on the boundary towards the end as well, with Evans, wasn't it, who went the journey in the last over.
That
was...
hit a massive heave.
That was a thief as well.
Didn't quite clear the rope.
And then there were a couple of drop catches for Zimbabwe. Even at the very end there, the run out they got from the final ball was via a drop catch, and kind of went to build on that point from before that they didn't feel like they were quite, for whatever reason, quite in the zone today, whereas Bangladesh very much were.
And that run out could have been a double play. Bring in the double play.
That run out from Shakib to get rid of Williams at the crucial juncture in the penultimate over, that is the game-turning moment, and that's principally a fielding thing, right? Having the presence to not only dive away to save the run, but in his own mind thinking, well, if I get this in one clean motion, the run out's on, one stump to aim at, it's worth looking up the clip if you haven't seen it. It's the best bit of fielding in the tournament so far.
The Dutch and Pakistan in 30 seconds could do that pretty comfortably. Yes. The Dutch were overwhelmed in Perth, couldn't handle the pace and bounce, and poor old Bustalita got smashed in the face by Harris Ralph, and that rattled the Dutch. They ended up swinging hard at the spinners, missing balls that were straight at the stumps, and were all out for 91. Pakistan chased it comfortably, took their sweet time to do it, 14 overs to get there and 4 wickets down, but they banked a win, and the Dutch bowled pretty well, actually. They did their best to keep things tight, but they were never going to be able to compete with that sort of score. A tough road ahead for them, but Pakistan are in the book.
Now, I've got to admit, I didn't watch the chase of this game. I was busy packing for my flight at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning with this voice. Bloody hell.
I did, and I can tell you about it.
I'm going to ask you a couple.
Okay.
To my way of looking at it, they've hit 10 boundaries in 12 and a half overs.
Didn't hit a 6 in the innings. It
wouldn't have mattered had they chased this down having lost 8 wickets. Wickets don't factor into net run rate.
Right.
I mean, this makes no sense to me. The only viable route to the semi-finals for Pakistan is getting to a point where they will be vying for the second spot on net run rate. There's no way of doing it without net run rate being a factor. Wouldn't you in that scenario? I mean, you might be able to throw an exotic scenario, but the most likely, the central case, if they get there, is where they tip over the line on a tiebreaker, which is net run rate.
Okay.
On that basis, why are they taking 13 overs to chase 90 odds? Surely it's in their interest to go absolutely hell for leather, because they're not going to lose the game. Once they got to, their power play, they only made 35 or something like that when the field was up, and Rizwan 49 from how many balls? 40 odd balls?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll say that the Dutch bowled well, but they're only chasing 90. Surely it's in their interest just to go for it, full stop.
Well, I think the reason is that net run rate won't play into it for them because of the washout in their group. So Zimbabwe and South Africa each have half a point, which means that Pakistan can't finish level with points on them. That's impossible.
But they can finish level in points with India.
India, even if India lose to South Africa, India will still beat everyone else and be ahead on
But
points.
it's so unlikely that Pakistan will get through.
So it's actually not as unlikely as you might think. So this is quite interesting. I was looking at this before. Pakistan have South Africa and Bangladesh coming up. So, they have to beat.
I'm not sure who I'm waving downstairs to there, but hello. Had some admirers from beneath us watching us film. Hello there. Enjoy your night.
All right. So we'll take this again. Pakistan have South Africa and Bangladesh. They have to beat them both. If they don't beat South Africa or Bangladesh, they're out. Fine. If they do beat them, they're on 6 points, and they can't finish level with South Africa on points, no matter what happens, because of that extra point that's floating around in there. The only team they could finish level with would be
India.
Bangladesh,
but
they've got to beat Bangladesh, which means they would only finish level with Bangladesh if Bangladesh beat India and Pakistan beat Bangladesh. So they're actually reasonably unlikely to end up in a scenario where they need net run rate. They just need to win those 2 games
and hope that other teams lose.
Other results go their
way.
Fair
enough. I had it explained to me a different way before about their best case of getting through. But nevertheless,
look, it's possible. There's no
you can't take these
Bangladesh could beat India,
or there might be more rain. We're going to Adelaide where it's going to piss it down.
Yes, and there could be more rain, and net run rate could come into it if that's a factor. But I think they were just nervous. They looked like a nervous team coming out. They changed the order around. So Fakhar Zaman came in at first drop, and then they had Shan
Welcome
Masood.
back, Fakhar Zaman.
Yeah.
Final word fave.
Yes. And Shan Masood shuffled down to 4. So 4 openers, effectively, including a great county opener in Shan Masood, who came in and did a job in the middle as well, because Babar Azam got run out early, and Fakhar Zaman eventually edged off. Now, there were a couple of really good overs. So Van Meekeren bowled a couple of excellent overs on the spin, and then Glover came in, and he bowled rapidly. He was bowling mid-140s and testing them out, and he took the outside edge of Fakhar Zaman, and there was never a case where, well, they're in a position where they might actually win this, but it was a case where they were going to push Pakistan. They weren't going to give it away. Logan van Beek bowled really well as well. So all of the medium paces, they used the seam well. It was Glover with the scrambled seam one that decked back in as well, so he picks up another wicket late in the piece, and then Shan Masood with one run to win cuts Glover down to deep third and ends up giving up a catch. So it was Van Meekeren with the scrambled seam one. That's the one that bowls Mohammad Rizwan that goes through him by cutting back in. So they performed creditably. It was more the spin that got poor Tim Pringle got whacked around a bit and didn't bowl a lot, but they made Pakistan work for it, and you could tell that the Pakistanis were a little bit anxious.
And earlier with the ball, I did see it was just that raw pace, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
it was unfair at that point almost. Like the Dutch don't play in those conditions. They're not going to play on a Perth pitch where it's going to leap at you.
Yeah, it's a kind of a reminder as well that Pakistan on paper with those 4 quicks look formidable. Now Mohammad Wasim Jr.'s bowling full and straight and swinging it about. Add that to Harris Shah, Shaheen Shah Afridi, and Naseem Shah, who conceded 11 runs in 4 overs today, I think it was. It's going to be very. If they don't make it through to the semis, unlikely from where they are now, because of course losing that game to Zimbabwe will probably be what defines their tournament. They're going to look back at this one and go, gee, we missed the trick here. We didn't make it through to the final last year on the back of a drop catch with I was going to say Rahat Ali. That was the Shane Watson drop catch in Adelaide in the quarterfinal of the 15 World Cup. It was Hassan Ali, wasn't it? Who dropped that catch in the second last over against Australia, which would have iced that semi-final in a period of time.
The best opening batting pair in the world, and they haven't really fired a shot. Certainly not together. They haven't worked together so far.
And I know with T20 tournament play, it's kind of like it's about when you peak and what circumstances your side is in, or what sort of form they're in at the moment, the gel and so on. But taking the longer lens, Pakistan over the last 6 years have been the number 1 T20 side more than they haven't on the rankings, and yet they're a possibility of not making the final last year when they should have, and not making the semi-finals this year when, again, it feels like they've got a bowling attack that deserves to. And of course they went all the way with India and kind of they absolutely botched that finish last week at the MCG.
Yeah, and the other thing about their net run rate is that it is ahead of everybody except for India, and I mean South Africa have that crazy net run rate because of the washout game and all of the rest of it. So they are in a positive spot, and if they win those next 2 games, then
so what does it mean? So if India beats South Africa, let's go that. Let's go part one.
Which will be that game will be starting any minute now.
And you'll be doing your 3rd episode of the day. Then I'm not going to do that one because I'm pretty much flying as you'll be recording that. But so if India go on and win,
I'll run through everybody. The Dutch have Zimbabwe and South Africa left to try to look for a couple of points and see if they can snag a win somewhere.
Which is important, by the way. I'll just add on that. Only 2 European teams are qualifying for the 20-team World Cup in 2 years' time from the qualification tournament, and Europe's quite a strong group. If you can finish, I think I'm right in saying, if you can finish in the top 10 of this tournament, you get automatic qualification.
Right.
So they'll avoid that rigmarole in the same way that Namibia avoided that rigmarole this year. They didn't have to go to the World Cup qualifiers. So there is something there for the Dutch.
Okay. Pakistan have South Africa and Bangladesh. So 2 hard tasks, but they might be able to do it. South Africa, if they lost to Pakistan, would have to beat India and the Netherlands, right? Zimbabwe would have to beat India and the Netherlands in order to qualify. So that's the bigger task for those teams. And Bangladesh on 4 points, but have India and Pakistan to come. So basically India could afford to lose to South Africa tonight and still finish top, as long as they win the other games that they would normally be expected to win. And from there, there's one spot open, and most of those teams could still make it through.
Fun. So the game tonight will shape that a great deal, because if India win, it really is, they're all playing for second spot. There's 3 teams playing for second spot.
But if South Africa win, they could then maybe afford to drop the game to Pakistan. Whereas if they lose tonight, they must win that.
Much as it was with New Zealand last night, needing to beat Sri Lanka to give themselves the best chance.
The breathing space.
The breathing space that they'll need against England if they were to lose, and they'll still be well ahead on that run rate. Fascinating.
Yeah. It's all happening.
It is. It's probably the right time to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yes, Hall of Fame is brought to you by CBUS Super. That's a superannuation fund. That means they take care of your money in retirement. You can get your super sorted. Call them up, ask them to help you out. And the good thing about them is that they won't sting you with ridiculous fees because they don't have any shareholders to give money to. They just have members. And so they look after their members and they invest all the money they can back into helping you make more money. So cbussuper.com.au.
Yes, $74 billion of funds under management, which all contributes to the National Savings Project as well. And yes, they've been in operation since 1984 for their members. Have a look, cbussuper.com.au, and get your superannuation sorted out. My nomination is that today is that I was with my daughter, Winnie, earlier, taking in the dramatic closing stages of the game at the Gabba. And by the way, wasn't it lovely to see cricket at the Gabba today for the first time in the tournament? Beautiful day for it. And she has watched that clip with me from the 2019 World Cup with Ian Smith. We're going to a super over. So many times that upon hearing them talk about the super over, she goes, "Are we going to the super over?" And I took a video. I said, "Say that again, Winnie." I took a video of her doing it. In fact, I'm going to drop that video in here. The super over?
We're going to go to the super over.
There you go.
Winifred May Collins, everybody. She's been on the show before, and she may be on it again up until the point where she's about 7, and then she'll hate us and be embarrassed by it.
Yeah. She still finds it exciting hearing the podcast music come on, and she goes, Uncle Jeff. Doesn't care that I'm on there, cares about hearing your voice.
You're always around. Right, my Hall of Fame is just a sending of good wishes to Bustalita, who copped a horrible blow, and he was okay. He was on the bench by the boundary afterwards, so it looks like no broken bones and hopefully no concussion. But you couldn't quite tell if it was the ball that got through the grill or whether the grill itself went into his face. But he got hit by Harris Ralph. It was fast. It was furious, and it cleaned him up. And his right eye is swollen, almost shut. He's got a cut in his cheek. He's got a huge bruise, huge shiner. It's very unpleasant. It's the kind of thing that can happen playing cricket. It's a very tough game at times, and they're a brave team coming out and facing up to sort of bowling of that type where you wouldn't normally come up against that.
Yeah, that'll be the end of his tournament, but he's enhanced his reputation in Australia over the last couple of weeks, Baz Delita. As you say, our best wishes to him. Hey, just a bit of peripheral news that I picked up. It's going to be a sellout at the MCG for
India, Zimbabwe.
Not India, Pakistan, not Australia, England. India, Zimbabwe. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Zimbabwean side will finish their group stage in front of 90,000 people at the MCG. They were selling them the standing room tickets yesterday. A press release went out, which is I'm sure there's a sellout right now for the Indian side playing in Perth against South Africa, as you'd expect there would be. This is not a Perth-Melbourne thing. I know there are some people from WA who are very fixated on crowds at the moment, but it's not about you. It's rarely about you. In this context anyway. The 90,000 people for a Zimbabwe game, that would be without precedent. Speaking of Zimbabwe, did you see the hostage video, so to speak, of Pakistan Mr. Bean that came out yesterday?
Yeah, he's just letting people know he's okay. I suppose I couldn't really he wasn't exactly using words, but he was I think he was saying that he loved Zimbabwe and he loved Pakistan.
Good on him.
Nice to know that he's sharing it around evenly. Our colleague Charlie Reynolds was hunting around for a Bangladeshi Mr. Bean to see if he could find a way for Zimbabwe to win that game. Because if there was a Bangladeshi Mr. Bean floating about, then that would have got the Zimbabweans very enthused. I think that's enough for today.
That's the Final Hall of Fame. cbussuper.com.au.
Yeah, there we go.
This illustrates why I need to go to bed.
There's a reason we're finishing this show right now before Adam Collins falls over. Jeff Lemon with you as well. There'll be the second part of today's daily for India, South Africa. Queued up next in the feed. We'll see you every day through the World Cup. That's what the daily's all about.
See you in Brisbane.
Bye.